a little bit of a late start here, but try to get going here pretty soon. So, alright, so what we're going to be doing tonight is going to be trying to debug some stuff. Really? How long has that been going? Oh my god. I think that's been running all freaking night. Yeah, this is the first time I'm getting on my system today. So I think I had that running all night. Oh well. Anyway, so gonna be debugging a couple some issues that I ran into with the well, actually, no, I fixed one of the issues, but now we have to deal with how it's being displayed. So I actually managed to get the the hovering over of the items things on the inventory working. What we have to do now is figure out why they're not displaying correctly, and I'll show you what I mean. And then we're also going to, if we manage to get that done in the hour and let's say hour 15 minutes, then we're getting a lot for the stream for this tonight. Then we will also work on implementing some other stuff. Oh, also, I've been toying around with actually creating some graphics for just some like placeholder graphics for the items and things. So that's what these are. These are eventually these will actually be crystals that'll be used for the mining 2-minute crystals, but for now they're going to be used to represent ore and whatever else mining related, specifically to these specific ores that we're going to have. Wasn't really too hard to do in Photoshop. Let me open up. Well, here's I guess this one's a better example. It's a larger one. So it's basically a couple of different things. So we've got a basically just like a layer here for the basic diamond / crystal shape, and then there's a kind of like a color over. Well, it's a color. I think it's a white overlay actually over the top to lighten up the top section, and then every segment of the crystal has its own layer that does shading, and I went through and applied basically a scaled shading based on where the light would be coming from, which is up in this direction coming down. So as you come down that way, it gets darker down this way. And then also there's a few blending effects on the main shape layer that gets this kind of depth of field sort of look to it. It's rough. It's a very rough version of it, but it's good enough for a tech demo, I would think. The final version, not final version, but the version that we'll be using for the ore will actually have it'll actually have like a ore rock kind of thing to it. If you played EVE Online, it'll look kind of similar to that in terms of like the ore kind of coming up as crystals out of the asteroid bits. But this will do for now. This only took me about 2.5 hours to do, using a guide and then just screwing around trying to figure out the best ways to do it, because the guide that I was looking at only had it for one face. Mine has 6 different faces, so I had to figure out how to actually do the lighting properly to show that off. And as you can see on some of the other ones, it didn't really work so well, just because of the dull nature of the colors, and I didn't use enough highlighting and whatnot and shading like on these. Yeah, so that's just something that I'll keep working on. So here's the problem though. So first we gotta enable the so here's the problem. It shows up, but as you can see, it all gets drawn over here instead of where we want it to be. And also when we're not hovering anymore, it's not hiding. In fact, it just kind of stacks things on top of each other, and the images aren't working either. For example, when we hovered over this, we got, oh nice, we got one of these issues. probably because we kept putting stuff on top of each other and not getting rid of them, and it caused a crash access violation error or something. As you can see, so we got some problems to work out. Now, I did create a new function, well, two new functions, to kind of... That's... okay, the lighting is weird. To kind of try and deal with the whole, you know, the craziness that is the getting of the item images, or the images for the inventory, that whole thing. I've tried to create a couple of functions to try and deal with that. And actually, I created a new blueprint entirely for that called utils. It's going to be like a utils class. It'll have a whole bunch of stuff in it that will be useful and won't have to be like instanced and then shared around. They can different objects will be able to just create a version of it, their own version of it, and call these methods, these functions as they need them. But I created this this to try and, one, clean up the design a bit, so it wasn't like it is over here, I think. So it's not like this, and definitely not like it is in the other one. It looks a little bit cleaner this way, I think. And what I was trying to do was essentially make it so that all I had to do was just call a function, pass through a string to do this part, then just return the slate brush that's been made with the image that's been selected based on the item name that's been used. That's the general idea of this one here. And as far as I can tell, it kind of works, but like you saw earlier, it kind of didn't work also. For some reason, it was throwing out iridium instead of iron for the iron. Now, I'm not really sure why, but we will figure it out. And the other thing we have to do is make sure we undraw it and then have it being drawn correctly. Well, not draw, but remove it from the viewport when we're not hovering over it. So we got a couple things to fix, definitely. So first things first, what we need to do is we need to figure out why it's not drawing correctly, and that's probably because we're using a context or a canvas panel instead of using not a canvas panel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this. I'm going to delete this whole thing out again. We're just going to paste this back into here. And granted, well, we'll have to figure out how to deal with the sizing of it. Because as far as I can tell, we may just have to go with a static, what is that one called? Yeah, I might just have to use a canvas panel instead of using the grid panel. Uniform grid, size box, scroll box, scale box, safe zone. Widget switcher. Oh, control, okay. Interesting. So that can actually be useful for like a more in-depth inventory system where you have like things separated up by types or something. Maybe we'll see about implementing something like that. Actually, that might come in handy for the shop, now that I think about it. So we'll have like the buy and sell panels. So yeah, I think what we want to do is we just want to take this. We do want to put a, just undo what I did. And instead we just want to take all this and dump it into the canvas panel. And then get rid of the grid panel. And then we have to, deal with this. It'd be nice if it kept this size. Save it. some reason, whenever I reload it, maybe it's because I didn't save it before, but it was always coming back up to the full size. We got to reposition everything again, so that one's fine there. Text description. No. Well, I might have had the description, but it's not. We got too much overlapping crap. So ore resource 1, 2. Let's just pull this stuff off here until we get to what we want. We also had some issues with the default values on these coming through instead of having nothing if there was nothing. That's just something I'll have to... What the hell? Oh, there we go. It was kind of stuck behind the behind this. So that's kind of what it... Oh, okay, this here. That's the position, size X, Y, yeah. So 110 and 91. There we go. Alright, so item name. I'm going to put that here. Anchor it to the center. Then we want to have the ID down here. We want to have the text description kind of in the middle. Actually, let's move that so I can move stuff out of the way. So we're also going to make that larger so so we have more room to put text into it. And I actually might want to make it so that it's further over this way. So that we can move this stuff around. So, item type. Item class. Ah, come on. Alright, there we go. Let's put this back where it was. Yeah, I don't really think we need to have like a label or something to say what it is, because it's going to be kind of obvious what they are. Actually, this should go after these. Okay. I'll need to work on actually getting these like lined up properly, but for now that'll do. So what I want to do now is I want to take out the default text so it's not in there. It's gonna be kind of annoying for moving things around, but we can re-add the text if we need to. For now, I just want to get rid of it so it's not showing if it's not got a value. I also need to figure out a way if there's somehow to actually make it completely not... Well, it doesn't matter actually. This isn't a grid panel, so it's just going to be static. Text description, item name. Okay. Now, back on the inventory tile. So, event graph, on mouse enter. Yeah, we didn't do the on mouse leave yet. So that's why. So on mouse leave, we want to add a new function called hide detail panel. And really all we need to do is just to call, for now, anyway, we just need to call get all widgets of class I'm just going to make it to our details window. And for each, there's only going to be one, but for what we're doing here, we just need to use that. And then we're going to say remove, should be removed from viewport. Actually, no, that's true. We're not adding to the viewport, or are we? No, we are adding it, right? Add to viewport, yeah. So it should be removed from viewport too. Something we wouldn't have to get into doing this so soon, but before remove from viewport. Remove from parents. Okay, so that's the same thing, I guess. Okay. So one other way we could do it, though, if we wanted to try, well, again, it depends on your definition of what memory optimization or how your game runs, the optimization of the game as far as the memory is concerned goes. We could either create this every time that we need to show it, so we create it, then remove it when we're not hovering, or we can always have it exist. We create it once, always have it exist, and just change the visibility of it. And change out the data, as opposed to removing it every time and adding it every time. At this point, I don't think it really matters too much. Later on in like the full version, the actual game, it might matter in terms of the performance, but we'll see. So for now, we're just going to add it and remove it. Create it and remove it. Okay, let's see what happens with this. Well, it definitely doesn't remove it. Let's see if I can cause it to crash again. It only crashed when we hit a specific one, which was interesting. Oh, it's not doing it now. As you can see, it's still not drawing correctly because it's taking up the entire screen instead of just this, how he sized it, which is what I thought would happen. There's got to be a way to make the canvas panel bind or be region bound or something. UE4 canvas panel size. Oh. Do we not need it at all? I thought we needed to have something in there. Maybe we don't even need it at all. Okay, because we're using anchors, maybe. Okay, so that basically makes it take up the entire screen. So that's not what we want either. Damn. So let's see, how can we do this? So the other ones that we have them like displaying in a specific place, we do that by using some other kind of menu or some other kind of window. In this case, we're using context menu and then context menu box. Procedurally just generate widgets and place them in a container. Which is kind of what we want to do, really. Maybe a size box? Oh, this is still inside of a canvas panel. Oh, hell. So it has to, yeah, so you can't put all these on their own. That's, I think, what's going on. It's automatically creating a canvas panel. So I think let's try doing a size box. Okay, so it only applies to one widget. Well, this is annoying. Wrap box. So how can we just like display a window? So, what we need to do is we need to do a kind of like a window, but not a window. Some sort of panel where we can arrange things manually, but that we can resize. Interesting. As canvas slot set size position. Expandable menu on bottom right of the screen. So when I put it in the when I had the canvas panel, it was working kind of. The problem was that it wasn't being displayed where it needed to be. Or you had this happen where it takes up the entire screen. Well, that's different. This is very annoying. So let me check here for the main menu. Yeah, we don't have anything in there for the main menu. The main menu, the right-click menu, context menu is completely dynamic that way. So in this one we have the context menu and a menu box, and then in the box, so maybe we need to have a similar to this, have like a two-part thing where we have the container it's contained in, and then the actual stuff to display for it. That doesn't make much sense because we'd run into the same problem, I would think. Which is, how the hell can we position this thing the way we want to without it expanding across the entire screen with the canvas panel? All the other panels seem to oh, interesting. Seem to not be predisposed to allowing you to do things manually. And the best one would be the grid panel, but we were running into issues with that as well. But that might be just the reason for that might be just because of the way that we were trying to set the mouse or something. So let's go ahead and see if we go back to the grid panel. Of course, now everything's going to get stuck on top of each other. This is the other thing. Oh, yeah, it's true. The other thing about this is that the this isn't exactly the best solution either. At least not for the item description. Class, there we go. Okay, resource 1. Alright, we have this. Somehow we got the stage. So we can't use the arrow keys, we have to rely on these kind of buggy buttons, but you get what you get to work with, so. And this layout, I have no clue what to do with the text box because it just displays really weirdly. The description box. So how far does it actually stretch? It's supposed to auto wrap too. Oh, there we go. I mean, I guess it works, yeah. Kind of, sort of. It doesn't... Auto wrap isn't actually auto wrap. Horizontal space for the widget. Well, since it's a grid panel... And it really just seems like it's not going to respect the boundaries we set either. So I just don't get about this particular thing we're trying to do. Yeah, see, it's just goes out into nothingness. Doesn't wrap down like it should. This is a text block. Oh, there's like a wrapping policy? Uh-huh. Well, that still doesn't do anything. Exceeds width. So let's say like 150. Okay, there we go. That's a bit better. 300. That's where it doesn't seem to be making that much of a difference. That's kind of interesting. So weird. It's almost like it's not updating the bounding box or changing this. So I gotta have to go here and then back to here to have it expand more. Yeah, there we go. That looks a bit better. So we'll do that. Now, the other issue is that it's not drawing correctly. So the top right corner instead of where the mouse is at. Unless I didn't hook that up yet, which is possible. Let's go take a look. Actually, it should be over in inventory tile. Show details pane. Now we're... Oh. Yeah. We have no target. That's the problem. Or at least I think that's the problem. It's a problem. There we go. Now we got it coming up where it should be. However, as you can now see, we are just adding them, not removing them, for one. And two, it's always coming up as OS instead of everything else. So our end hover isn't working. Maybe we should do it on click instead of hover. Hovering makes more sense. That's what I don't get about it. So for some reason we're not, this part isn't working. Let's put a breakpoint here. And let's see if we're actually getting to this location. Yay, the breakpoint caused a crash. Awesome. Never you can crash the editor by just putting a breakpoint on something. You know you're doing something right. Jesus. Don't restore. So I wanna make sure. Well, actually, the breakpoint probably is no longer there. Crap. CUI. Inventory tile. And graph, and hide details, and yeah, there's no. Oh no, yeah, we're not hitting this at all. No, we're not. So that is very interesting. So on event graph. Oh hell, it didn't save. That's why. The crap. So get all widgets of class and detail window, resume, for each loop. Oh wait, hey. That time it seemed to work. That is very interesting. Yeah, it's kind of glitchy, but it's working somewhat. Again, we got some problems, but it's not keeping stuff up on the screen anymore, and we're not. See, it works for this one. See, it's working for this one. I don't know why it's only giving us an OS for. That's kind of strange. Let's go to this. So we're calling get item detail image, passing through the item name, which is good. That's right. Oh, did I not? I thought I did change it. Maybe I didn't change it. No, it's all such crystals. For some reason, it's pulling up Oz though every time. Instead of what it's supposed to be doing. So, the first one's iron, right? Fe. So it should be this one. Okay. So it's not quite working the way I thought it should. Hmm. And it's not even calling the this over here for some reason, which I find very interesting. So create utils. This is on set item data. The target of which is an item detail window. So that's correct. Let's put a breakpoint there. Yay, another crash. I have no clue what it did, but the editor is no longer stable for some reason. Probably has to do with how we're trying to add the texture. Well, that's only when we're trying to do debugging, so I'm not sure what the hell's going on. We did something to it, though, to cheese it off. Okay, so OS is the default image. That's why it's showing up all the time. So we're not really passing any... Okay, so we're not passing data through. That's the problem. It's not doing that part. Why isn't it doing that? So that's a good question. Why get data? Okay, so we go through, find the UIVP, check to make sure that's the right one. So we look for if the index is 1. If it is, we come down to here, update ship. Then we call get item at tile index. Once we have that, then we call create item details window widget. And then we start calling all the rest of the stuff. So in this case, we're calling all the functions from the UItem class. Then we're creating utils, and then we are casting it to utils, and then we're calling get details image. So where the hell are we crashing at? Set in a few more breakpoints. See where we're actually getting to. That's not what I wanted. Okay, get iname. I want to watch that value. So it's iridium ore for some reason. So we have a certain tile index. Get item at tile index. That's interesting. Oh no, this is the tile index is this index. Duh. This is the tile itself, so we're getting the value of that. In this case it's 0, but the return value is iridium ore. Which shouldn't be what's in the first slot. It should be iron ore, I think, is the first one. Return value integer for get ID. Okay, continue, create. Utils, right. Wrong one. So iridium ore. Should be loading in the iridium crystal texture, but it's not doing that either. And now we got a friggin' crash. Awesome. So, v2 API 32 doesn't exist. That's not the reason for the crash. Cannot call in real script visibility engine, brush binding. Well, I'll stop at a breakpoint. Really? So it's crashing legitimately, because whatever the hell this stuff is can't run at a breakpoint. So by debugging it, we're breaking it. Okay, I guess I buy that. Stupid as that is, but I guess I buy it. It's an undocumented feature. So how are we supposed to debug this when debugging it causes it to throw a crap fit? It's a good question. So let's think about this. So we know that we're passing through the wrong item name. The item name is coming from the item's T array based on the tile index number. The tile index number is set up when we load the inventory. So I guess we need to check out the code that populates that value and creates it. But really, that value is really the setup in the UI. It's kind of a tracker in the code and the UItem class to track its position in the UI for certain things. So really, the issue might be in the UI blueprint itself. Okay, let's go have a little look here. So we want to go to so we have a set UI index. Index set UI. Okay, that's for the variable in this. There's a variable here for that. Let's go to update inventory, where we just were. So the target of this is the inventory tile. And this is coming from the count. Okay, so basically what we're saying is that for every I think this has got to be wrong somehow. The logic here doesn't work. So we're getting the children count. So let's say it's 0. This is operating on a... No, this isn't operating on a for loop. No, yes it is. Yes it is. Yes it is. Down here. It's operating on a for loop on the env items EU item array. So for every time we go through this loop, we're looking at the count of the children. At first it's 0, so the array index for that particular item is set to 0. Next time it's set to 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, then 5, etc. But what if there's already something there? How does it impact that? So if we already have stuff here, so if it's not 0 and it's not equal and The children count is less than the ray length. We go to true. Okay, so if they're equal. True. Get child at inventory. Cast inventory tile. Get item amount. Set item count string. So that's for that counter on the bottom in the tile image. Okay. Something still isn't clicking here because when we selected that, when we hovered over the tile, it throws back iridium, which means it's not, the index isn't returning as 0. It's returning, or if it is, that item, the iridium item, is being sent as 0 when it shouldn't be. So I think what we need to do is look at the array itself, I guess. Which to do, we'll need to switch over to debug mode on this. This is the kind of stuff that happens once you get a sufficient level of complexity to anything. You add one little thing and then it like craps out all the rest of the stuff you did, or causes some sort of this little issue somewhere that just destroys everything. Like that other one, where was it? It was from the other stream where I said it's like having a missing pin is like having a missing semicolon or something in the code. No, because why? Internal heap limit reached because don't have sufficient rights to run the command, because it says that shouldn't be an issue. Failed to create virtual memory for PCH. Let's go ahead and close this and reopen it. Photoshop was doing some weird things to my computer earlier, so maybe it crapped it out somehow. That, and I might be finally starting to see some hardware degradation. It's only been I've had this system for almost 5 years now, and I've run it pretty much 24/7 to the bone a lot of the times. So I'm not surprised there might be some issues cropping up now. For the next year and a half or so, I'm probably going to be building a new system. So anyway, because AMD is no longer supporting my video card, so I can't really update the drivers for it, and newer technologies and whatnot. I want to make an AMD system next anyway. So, I'm going to switch this over to, it's already there. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and build. Alright, seems like it's maybe going this time. Alright, success. Alright, so, what we want to do now, I guess, is we want to, so, when we open up the inventory, or I guess when it's running from default, like I said, it opens up automatically. We want to check the values when we are setting the inventory tile indices. So that would be in items C++, which is where we're at. And we want to look at the set. Here we go, this one. Oh, let's get. Where's the set for that one? Or are we just setting it, huh. So we have... Well, I guess it's a direct access kind of thing, but... Okay, yeah, so we're just directly accessing the variable. So, how do we debug that then? Can't put a breakpoint in the header file because it's not going to reach the header file. I guess we can put the breakpoint in here on the... on this. And see where that gets us. How the hell is it not in scope when it's... Maybe that's it. I mean, it should be in scope because it's... Yeah, we're using it over here. How's it not in scope? Over here it says 0, so I guess, yeah. 0. And no value apparently. I don't know why the watch thing in this debugger is so crappy. Wish there was a way we could actually, see what the value is in like a list or something instead of using this stupid system where it's like, oh, sure, we'll watch the value for you. Well, nothing there. Jeez. Visual logger tool. No clue what that does. I think I looked through this before looking for that thing and couldn't figure out where it was. Class viewer? Oh, it's just like the object viewer in Visual Studio. Okay, so we're not... Really? It only ran once. That's kind of strange. Okay, let's re-enable these. Something is really wrong here. So we're either going to go over here or we're going to come down here. Alright, so starting here, and this one should be true because it should be nothing there. this should be 0. Okay, so we create the tile widget. We do all that other stuff. We end up over here, which is fine. Then we add the child to the wrap box. Now this one should be false because this should be 1. This should be false because it's not equal. And this should be true because this is less than that. 1 is less than 9. True, okay. So it should be 1. Here's the thing though. Is this setting this? Oh wait, isn't there? I thought there was one here to store that. Maybe there. Well, it's UI index. I guess I don't have one for the inventory tile index anymore. So this should be like going right to the inventory tile object reference. Oh, inventory tile. Okay. So I wonder if it's setting the value in the inventory tile but not in the code. That's possible, I suppose. It would actually answer a couple of questions as to why things aren't really working right. Okay, so we're setting that. At any point, are we setting it in the actual UI item now? This could be where things are getting frailed up at. I mean, it shouldn't be getting set anywhere, though, other than here, because this is specifically to track where the item is in the UI, not anywhere else. So unless it's in the UI, it shouldn't have a value. Well, it should have a default value of 0, I guess. Well, then again, this could be why we're getting all these crashes, because it's trying to access a value that isn't initialized, so there is nothing there to pull out. Unless we set it in the constructor, which I don't think we do. No, we don't have to do anything in the constructor other than create the object class. Hey, okay, so I think this is where we got a problem. Then again, if we look at the blueprint, maybe we don't. So it depends on how this is using, what this is using. If this is using the function, then yeah, we could have a problem. Oh yeah, here we go, look at this. That's right, we use this function. This function is using what we're passing through to try and find it using what's in the, so we can actually check and see what values we're getting through there by putting a breakpoint here. Okay, let's go ahead and disable all the breakpoints over here. Well, we'll delete them, I guess. Yeah, I said we'll delete them. And that really happened. Alright, so what is the value of this? 0. Because the default value for that variable is 0. So, then again, it is the first one, so maybe that's what we want. What item are we returning, though? We're returning the last item. So like if I put a breakpoint here, we hit continue. Oh no, it's returning none. It's returning this empty one. Again, because these all have nothing in there. Yeah, access violation error. Yachts. Okay, so, we need to kind of rethink how we're doing this then. And in case you haven't noticed, I am rewatching Farscape at the moment, so you'll hear a lot of the Farscape swearing in these more recent streams. So we need to deal with that, because that's where the problem's coming from. So what we need to do then is on the UIBP. Once we loop through here, so once we get to this point, we need to do a call to set I'm just going to leave it like that for the moment. So this will set it hopefully in the item. So let's go and compile this. Let's run it. So now, K0. One. Okay, there we go. Return item should now be item 0, which is iron ore. Okay. We can make that a little bit more efficient too. Oh, we're still getting OS. But at least we're pulling the right values now. For the index. So now, as to why we're not getting any data. For that, we'll need to go to inventory tile. And we need to look at this. So, Let's put a break here. We'll already have one there. We'll just we'll enable it. I guess when we say delete, it only deletes it from the currently open file, which is kind of annoying. Alright, so now this should say item engine transient none. That was odd. So what's the so 0? Update ship. Cargo, which is the inventory. Target is the inventory. It's the value we're passing through. And the return value should be an item. So if we're looking at the code here, inventory, return item. Wow, we're just hitting all kinds of access violation errors here. Something is definitely broken. The question is, where the hell is it? What is breaking and why? So one thing we need to do is so one thing could be is if it doesn't find it in here and it returns this empty object, it might cause that because we're trying to access data that isn't there. So that's one thing that could happen. We might want to actually initialize this to like some default values or something. The other thing we can do is, let me hit stop on this, is once we find what we're looking for, what we should do is we should do a break here. Because once we find the item we're looking for, there's no reason to continue looking for it. Now we can do this and say now if so how do we check if so I've never actually done checking for nulls in C++ before. Seems like something that I probably should have done before, but UE4 C++. Well, it's not null either. It actually has a value. Well, it has an instance loaded into it. It's just there's no data in the instance. None of the variables are set. So maybe we can just do real quick rtn item dot set, or rather, we'll set the ID to -1. Then we can say if rtn item so if it is -1, meaning if we didn't find, for some reason didn't find the item in the item array, the item in items array, we can just set this to some sort of default crap. Actually, I'd rather do it all one word. No item found. Set ISG2. What else is there to set? I don't think that'll cause a problem. Because Abyssal will just do the same thing again, trigger the same thing again. So yeah, I think that should be good. All right. Been about an hour and a half. So we'll see if this works. If not, then I'll just have to keep screwing around with it till I figure out what the hell is causing the issue. Turn item is 0, which is iron ore, just right. Resource iron ore. Okay, that's what we want. Yeah, okay, didn't save the breakpoint over here, I guess. Or it did, just not me re-enabling it. So, item 0, that's right. Get iname. Actually, I think we have to put it after this if we want to see the value. Iron ore, okay, that's good. That is correct. So... stage. We didn't set the stage, though. Okay, so we've got all the values. Somehow this has a 0.05. Oh, it's because it's from the database, right? Okay, so we create utils, cast it, and then we call the game details image, which at the moment has... not sure why it has stuff in there for, but it does. Let's put a breakpoint there. Okay, that's interesting. It obviously hit here and went in there, but it didn't do anything. It didn't actually do anything. That's awesome, I guess. I don't know what the hell is that. I've never seen it not go to a function when it actually hits the function in the function node somewhere else. That's really interesting. And then boom, we get our access violation error. I wanted to go ahead and take the debugs off of here, or the breakpoints. And we'll just do the debugging in the blueprint and see. I think this is what I was seeing happening earlier and I couldn't figure out why. And then we kind of got led off on a tangent with all the other crap, which did need to be fixed actually, so. But we seem to come around full circle to this problem, which is really what the issue is in terms of displaying things. That's right, the damn. So the main issue is that in here, not in here, in here. When we hit this, it's not actually doing anything. Now there is another one of these. I'm just going to throw a breakpoint in here just because maybe it's throwing it over here for some reason. I don't know. Anything could happen. Alright, get item details image. So it's definitely hitting there. Item name is on iron ore. Utils, that's correct. It's utils class. And it doesn't go over there. That is interesting. So yeah, this is our culprit here. It's not actually calling the function, which is very, very interesting. Alright, well, that's going to be that for this portion of the stream. I'm going to go ahead and stop the stream, rename the streams both on YouTube and on Twitch. Take a short break to go grab a monster because I had to get up early this morning to it's got our server finally at work today, and the guy was well, we had it, but the guy finally came to install it, so I had to go in there early. It's kind of destroying my brain right now, so I will stop the stream and be back in probably about 5 minutes or so.